We've heard from Canadian beef producers and associations that the priority will be ensuring Canadian supply before they move to exporting. Much of our beef is exported, but right now the priority will be on domestic supply. So we are not at this point anticipating shortages of beef, but prices might go up. We will, of course, be monitoring that very, very carefully.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau there trying to reassure the public there will not be any shortage of beef, though he did admit prices could rise. A Cargill meat processing plant south of Calgary is now shuttered. The temporary closure is due to an outbreak of COVID-19 in the facility. More than 360 employees have tested positive for the virus and one worker has died. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer Dr. Dina Hinshaw said that more than 480 cases of COVID-19 in the Calgary area are linked to the facility. How did so many become infected, and what will it take to get the plant back up and running? Thomas Hesse is the president of Union 401 of the United Food and Commercial Workers, the union that represents the employees of the plant. Hi, Mr. Hesse, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I want to start off because I have read a number of articles in which you're quoted as saying Cargill didn't do enough to protect workers. What exactly are you basing that on, and what were conditions like for workers?
In the week prior to the closure of the plant, we became aware of a growing number of cases at the plant. We became aware that Cargill had closed the plant in the United States. We studied and evaluated the Alberta modeling numbers, which said to us that 1 in 6 Albertans were going to carry the virus, 17 out of 100. Hundreds of people, of course, work in this plant. We were listening to worker reports about conditions in the plant. We became very troubled as the week passed before Easter Sunday. And on the Sunday, we asked for the plant to, number one, close, at least temporarily. We wanted the workers to be able to go home with some economic security, to be paid, so they could isolate and take care of themselves and evaluate their health and be tested. And then the third thing we asked for was some sort of review of working conditions at the plant before the plant recommenced operations. It's a very disturbing situation to us and to Albertans and to the workers, of course, from the plant.
Yeah, when we report those numbers, I mean, they're big numbers, right? 380, I think it was, workers who have actually contracted the virus, one who has passed away. What are you hearing from your members, and what, I guess, like emotionally, what have they been feeling during this time? Must be stressful.
We've polled our members, and 85% of them say they're scared to go to work. 75% of them believe that the government and their employer has not done enough to keep them safe, and over 3/4 of them believe that they're not being compensated for the type of work that they're doing. These plants are based around the notion of social proximity, not social distancing. The lunchrooms are crowded, the production floor is crowded, the washrooms crowded, the hallways are crowded. Many, many boxes need to be checked in order for these plants to remain safe.
I want to put to you what one of the company's executives said to one of my colleagues who works for the website, for CBC's website, put up an article about this. John Nash, Cargill's lead for protein North America, says that the company did take proactive steps to focus on safety, encouraged employees not to come to work if they're sick, and offered up to 80 hours of paid leave for COVID-related circumstances. Also said that additional measures like temperature testing, enhanced cleaning and sanitizing, face coverings, screenings between employee stations were all implemented, went into place in the first week of March. Your response to that, Mr. Hesse?
Well, all of these things sound good on paper, but the fact of the matter is, if the plant was safe, why did they slow production significantly? Disturbingly, last Friday, Alberta government officials through Occupational Health and Safety told us that they determined that the plant was safe, and we later discovered that the Occupational Health and Safety officer actually did FaceTime with a cellular phone to inspect the plant. It's very disturbing that the Occupational Health and Safety officer comes to a conclusion about the safety of the plant while he didn't even have the courage to go to the plant himself. This plant is not safe. Cargill is a large multi-billion-dollar corporation. They have no roots in Canada or in our community. They're operated and owned by the Cargill family, the fourth richest family in the United States. I get very clearly that they're interested in continuing production. Every cow produced makes money for them. We have no beef with the beef industry, but to some extent, Canadian consumers, Canadian ranchers, farmers, people in agriculture, and Canadian workers and citizens are all being held to ransom by these plants where the animals must move through these plants to bring them to the table. All we're asking is that there be some independent oversight, that science guide our decisions, that intellect guides our decisions, and that these matters be devoid of politics and the pursuit of profit. We can bring the product to the tables of Canadians, and we can do it safely, but only if these principles come to bear on these procedures.
I should say that we did request an interview with the company on the show today, but we didn't get a response to our request. When you mentioned, Mr. Hesse, the idea of independent oversight and that it is possible to get this product to people's tables safely, can you be specific about what you're looking for?
It's not terribly complicated. I mean, our preference would be that the federal government showed leadership in this regard. Workers and Albertans have lost faith in the provincial government. The federal government does have some jurisdiction, certainly over food safety, not direct jurisdiction over occupational health and safety, but this is a time for leadership. COVID-19 has changed everything. We'd like to see an independent review of what's happening in this plant led by the federal government, and we'd like to see it be, we'd like to see the methodology be an effective methodology. I'd like to see hundreds of workers being interviewed anonymously so they could really speak about conditions in the plant. They're telling us that last week they didn't receive any masks until Wednesday, after the plant was already saying the plant was, after the company was saying the plant was safe, that supervisors and bosses had plexiglass face visors while workers were provided with flimsy little masks. We're hearing anecdotes wherein workers are telling us that they might be diagnosed for COVID-19, and if they're not showing any symptoms, that the bosses are telling them to come to work. You see, the plant very much wants people to come to work because they're very dependent on those people to slaughter and process these animals. These plants are like a disassembly line. Unlike an auto plant where you're putting a car together, you're taking an animal apart, and hundreds, if not thousands, of workers are working in very close proximity, elbow to elbow.
Has there been any communication from the company towards your members about what their plan is for reopening, what standards they'll use, that kind of thing?
Cargill has not been particularly transparent, and again, that's one of the reasons we're calling for independent review of what's happening, so we can have real fact finders who do not have a political bias and do not have a profit-based bias.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Hesse. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thomas Hesse is the president of Union 401 of the United Food and Commercial Workers. That's the union that represents workers at the Cargill meat processing plant in Alberta. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.